I used to think silence was just the space between conversations, the calm before laughter, or maybe the breath after a fight. But that night, when her phone lit up and the words stumbled from her lips, I learned that silence could be something else entirely. Something thick, something final. She told me she was spending the weekend at her sister's. It wasn't unusual. They were close, or at least she kept saying they were. Talia needs me, she'd say, eyes soft, voice threaded with concern. She's going through a lot right now. I didn't question it. That night, I even helped her load her duffel bag into the car, kissed her on the forehead, and watched her taillights disappear down the street. She was wearing that blue sweater I loved, the one she used to wear when we curled up on the couch on rainy Sundays, our hands tangled in a bowl of popcorn. I remember thinking she looked beautiful, even from behind. That's the last image I have of her before the truth started to crack the frame. But it wasn't her that cracked it. It was Talia. I hadn't planned to see her that night. I ended up at her place because her boyfriend, Darren, had invited me over to watch the game. Casual thing. Beer, wings, a few of his friends. He forgot to mention Talia would be there. I walked in, coat still damp from the drizzle, and there she was, laughing on the couch, hair tucked behind her ears, sipping wine like she didn't know she was supposed to be hosting her sister. "Hey," she said, standing up and giving me a quick hug. "You here for the game too?" I smiled, but I was already doing the math. I nodded slowly. "Thought you were out of town." Talia furrowed her brows, blinked twice. "Nope." "Why?" That's when my phone rang. Her name, Evelyn, glowed on the screen. I took the call, walked a few feet toward the hallway, still in earshot. She said she'd just gotten to Talia's, that they were about to open a bottle of wine and put on an old rom-com like they always did. "She's sitting right next to me," I said. I don't know what I expected. Maybe a laugh, a stammer, a flimsy excuse. But all I got was silence. Not a defensive silence. Not even a guilty one. Just empty. It stretched, long and echoing, until I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. I looked down the hallway and caught Talia's confused expression. I watched Evelyn's name still glowing on my screen, still connected, but saying nothing. That silence, it said everything. I ended the call. Didn't storm out. Didn't confront Talia. I just grabbed a beer from the fridge and sat on the couch. The game already on, the guys cheering like nothing had shifted. I don't think I blinked for a solid 10 minutes. That silence kept ringing in my chest louder than anything on the screen. I didn't go home that night. Didn't want to risk seeing her car in the driveway or pretending not to be the man who'd just caught his wife mid-lie. Instead, I checked into a motel a few exits away. The sheets were scratchy. The ice machine outside my door wheezed all night. But it gave me a place to think, a place to sit with that silence. The next morning, I started digging. I wasn't a paranoid guy. At least, I didn't think I was. But when trust snaps like that, you start turning over every stone you once left untouched. I checked our shared calendar. She'd blocked the weekend off as family time. Talia. I opened our joint credit card statement. There it was, charges at a boutique hotel downtown. Dinner at a rooftop place I knew she'd once said was too pretentious for us. A spa visit. 2 movie tickets. 2. And the hotel? It wasn't under her name. I stared at the alias. Claire R. Not Evelyn. Not even close. I tried not to make assumptions. Maybe she was meeting a friend. Maybe she booked it under a pseudonym for safety. But those were the lies you tell yourself when you're trying to save a sinking ship. What cut deepest wasn't the cheating. Not really. It was the intimacy of the lie. The way she used her sister, the one person I'd never doubt, as a shield. And worse, the way she said it so easily, like she'd done it before. And suddenly, memories started rushing back like water through a cracked dam. Her late nights that never added up. The perfume that wasn't hers on the jacket she claimed hadn't left the car. The smile that no longer reached her eyes when I said, "I love you." There's a certain ache that lives in the gut of a man who realizes the love he thought was his is being rented out to someone else. Not taken by force. Just given. Willingly. A few days passed before she returned. I was home by then, sitting on the back porch with a mug of coffee, watching the sky darken. She pulled into the driveway like it was any other Sunday evening. Got out of the car, waved at our neighbor, walked up the steps like she hadn't detonated our marriage with one phone call. "Hey," she said, setting down her bag. "I'm exhausted. Talia sends her love." I stared at her. Talia was with me on Friday. That was it. That was all I said. She blinked. Once. Twice. And again, silence. I watched her face, expecting a flicker of regret, panic, anything human. But she just stood there, arms at her sides, mouth slightly open like a woman who'd been caught walking into the wrong life. She didn't cry, didn't yell. She just nodded slowly and walked past me into the kitchen, like this conversation had been rehearsed, and this was just her cue to exit. That silence again, thick as concrete. She didn't deny it, didn't offer some desperate story. She let the silence hold the weight of the truth, because maybe she knew it already said more than her voice ever could. And in that moment, something shifted in me. Not anger, not even sadness, just finality. The next morning, I started packing. Not her things, mine. I folded shirts into boxes, wrapped up old books, took down photos with trembling hands. I found one of us at the lake from 4 summers ago. She was laughing, leaning into me, and I looked so damn proud just to be beside her. I stared at it a long time before slipping it into the bottom of a drawer. Couldn't bring myself to toss it. Not yet. When she came downstairs, saw the boxes, she didn't ask why. "I guess this is it," she said, almost like she was relieved. I didn't respond. What could I say? When you walk away from a home, it doesn't feel like walking away from a place. It feels like walking away from a version of yourself. I packed what I needed, essentials, keepsakes, memories I wasn't ready to burn. Left the key on the table. I didn't slam the door. I closed it quietly. I drove without a destination. Just put the car in drive and watched the road roll out in front of me like some kind of promise. The silence in the car wasn't peaceful. It was loud, full of thoughts and questions I didn't have the guts to ask her before I left. Who was he? Was he someone I knew? Was he worth everything we built? But the question that echoed the most was, when did I stop being enough? That one haunted me. Still does, if I'm being honest. I ended up at my brother's place. He lives 3 hours out in the hills, a quiet little town where nobody cares about your job title or your relationship status. He opened the door, looked me over once, and said, "Come in. You look like hell." I didn't tell him the full story right away, just said I needed space. He offered me the spare room and a bottle of bourbon. 2 nights later, I finally said the words out loud. She lied about being at her sister's. Talia was with me. The call, it was just silence. He didn't interrupt, just nodded and poured another drink. Sometimes that's all you need. Someone who doesn't try to fix it, doesn't try to tell you to move on. Just someone who'll sit with you in the ruin. Days turned into weeks. I stayed mostly indoors, slept too much or not at all. Ate when I remembered to. I replayed our last year like a detective reviewing old footage, looking for the moment the turn happened. There were signs. Of course there were. The missed anniversaries. The sudden gym routine. The new phone password. The cold shoulder disguised as just tired. But the worst part? The love didn't leave all at once. It leaked out slowly, drip by drip, in forgotten kisses and half-hearted laughs and eyes that were always looking elsewhere. I wanted to blame her. I really did. But I kept asking myself, was I still showing up for her the way I used to? I remembered the way I buried myself in work. The nights I came home too late, the distracted answers, the times I looked at my phone more than I looked at her. Maybe I made it easy for her to drift. Maybe I gave her the space she filled with someone else. That thought hurt worse than the betrayal. She didn't call for 3 weeks. Not once. Then one afternoon, her name popped up on my screen again. I stared at it for what felt like an hour before I picked up. "Hey," she said. Just that. Like we were old friends. I didn't answer. "I know you probably hate me," she continued, her voice thinner than I remembered. I didn't know how to fix it. "I'm sorry." "You're not calling to fix it," I said quietly. "You're calling to feel better." Silence. That silence again. She breathed into the phone. I didn't mean for it to go that far. It just happened. We were already falling apart, you know? "No, I didn't know," I said, because I was still trying. She said my name like it was an apology. I ended the call before she could make it worse. A week later, the papers came. I hadn't asked for them, but she had. Served to the address I'd left behind, forwarded to me by my brother. Neat, professional. No blame, just lines and boxes and signatures. I sat with them for a full day. Then I signed. What they don't tell you about separation is that the real pain isn't in the leaving. It's in the little things that come after. Waking up and reaching for someone who isn't there. Seeing a shampoo bottle in the shower that isn't yours. Finding her handwriting on an old grocery list. Smelling her perfume on a scarf you forgot to pack. Grief doesn't arrive all at once. It sneaks up on you in line at the grocery store, in a song on the radio, in a dream where she's still smiling at you like she used to. But slowly, quietly, I started building a new rhythm. I woke up earlier, took long walks, talked with my brother over morning coffee, started journaling, not to hold on, but to let go. I wrote down the fights we had, the moments that still hurt, the ways I failed her, the ways she failed me. Some days, I wrote to her, not to send, just to say the things I couldn't say when I was too wrapped up in trying to keep us alive. One of the entries read, "You said you needed space. I gave it to you, but I didn't know I was giving you room to forget me." 3 months in, I got a message from Talia. Just a single line. I didn't know either. "I'm sorry." We met up at a small diner halfway between our towns. She looked tired, worn down, but real. She hugged me longer than I expected. "I thought she was just having a rough patch," she said over coffee. I never knew about the guy. If I had, I nodded. "You don't have to explain." We sat in silence for a while. A softer silence. "There were moments," she said finally, "where I could tell she was slipping away from you. But I thought maybe you'd catch her." "I tried," I whispered. "I know." Before we left, she reached into her purse and pulled out a photo. Us, from 4 summers ago, on her birthday. Evelyn and I smiling, holding hands. "Back when everything felt easy. I thought you should have it," she said. I didn't know whether to thank her or cry, so I just nodded. It's strange, isn't it? The way love turns into memory. The way someone can be the center of your universe, and then, just someone you used to know. But there's a strange kind of peace in knowing you did your part. That you stayed honest. That even if she let go, you held on until the very end. That matters, even if nobody else sees it. It's been a year now. 12 months since that night. Since her voice cracked on the phone, and the truth slid in like a cold wind through an open window. Since I moved out with a heart half shattered, half silent. People ask me how I'm doing now, and I usually give them the safe answer. Better. It's true, in its way. But healing's never neat. It's not a straight line. It's hills and valleys, sometimes within the same hour. Some mornings I wake up feeling whole. Others, I still reach for her out of habit. But the thing is, I don't miss her anymore. I miss the version of her that existed in my mind. The woman I believed she was. That's a quiet grief, a more private kind. You don't mourn what you lost. You mourn what was never truly there. I moved into a small place on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, creaky floors that make noise every time I think I'm finally alone with my thoughts. But I like it. The first few weeks, I left the guest room empty. Just couldn't bring myself to decorate it. It felt symbolic, like I was waiting for something, or someone, that wasn't coming back. Eventually, I turned it into a study. Bought a cheap desk, a lamp, a secondhand leather chair. Started writing again. Not just journaling. Actual writing. Stories. Letters I'll never send. Honest ones. Some of them are about her. Most are about me. One night, I was walking through the neighborhood and passed a couple laughing on their porch. Her head was on his shoulder. He kissed the top of her hair like it was second nature. I smiled at them and kept walking. That used to hurt. Seeing other people happy. But now it just feels like watching a movie I've already seen. I know the story. I know how sweet it can be and how fast it can turn. But I'm not cynical. If anything, I've become more aware of the kind of love I deserve. One that doesn't need lies to survive. One that's boring in the best ways. Trust, routine, honesty, those used to sound dull. Now they sound like peace. Evelyn reached out again. Twice, actually. Once in spring. Once in summer. The second time, she asked to meet. I told her I wasn't sure. She said, "I just want to say sorry." In person. So I met her. Same diner where I'd met Talia. Different table. Different weather. Same weight in my chest. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically. Just less radiant. The kind of dimming that happens when someone loses the person who used to look at them with unfiltered admiration. She didn't cry. I think she'd already done that. "I messed everything up," she said. I didn't disagree. She told me the guy was gone. It fizzled out after a few months. "He wasn't what I thought," she said. I almost laughed. But I didn't. "He wasn't you," she added quietly. And there it was. That open door. That tiny thread tugging me back to a place I swore I'd never revisit. I looked at her for a long time. Not at her face, but at her. Really looked. And all I saw was a woman I used to love. A woman who made a mistake, maybe more than one. A woman who hurt me deeply. A woman I no longer belong to. I hope you find peace, I said, rising from the booth. She reached for my hand. I let her touch it for a second. Then I pulled away. Because sometimes forgiveness isn't an invitation. It's just a release. These days, I spend more time outdoors. I learned how to garden. You'd laugh if you saw me in gloves and muddy boots, coaxing tomatoes into life like they owe me something. But there's something healing about it, watching things grow, little by little. Even when you think the soil's too dry or the light's not right. Sometimes all a thing needs is time and quiet care. Kind of like me, I guess. I ran into Talia again a few weeks back. She and Darren were getting groceries. We chatted for a bit. She told me she was pregnant. I hugged her and meant it. As I turned to leave, she said, "You seem good." I paused. "I am," I said. And for the first time in a long while, I wasn't just saying it. There's a letter I keep in my drawer. Not sealed. Not hidden. Just folded neatly between pages of an old notebook. It's addressed to Evelyn. I wrote it one night when I couldn't sleep. Not because I wanted her back, but because I wanted to understand what had happened. It says, "You could have told me you were unhappy. You could have said you felt lonely, unseen, forgotten. I would have tried. I would have fought for us. But you chose the easy lie instead of the hard truth. I'm not angry anymore. I just wish I hadn't had to find out from silence. That call broke us. But the silence after, that's what ended it. I hope you find someone who sees you. And I hope next time, you choose to be honest when it matters most." I never sent it. I never will. But writing it down helped. If you're reading this, and you've been in the quiet after betrayal, I want you to know something. You don't have to fill that silence with noise. Not with shouting, or revenge, or desperate attempts to feel whole again. Sometimes silence is the clearest answer you'll ever get. It tells you when it's over. It tells you when to walk away. And if you listen closely, it tells you when you're finally free. That night, when she said she was at her sister's, and her sister was sitting right next to me, that silence hit like a freight train. But now, it's just a memory. A scar, not a wound. And these days, the silence I wake up to, it doesn't hurt. It heals.